The colony of Xerion 5 was alive with sound. Children's laughter echoed across the open playgrounds, mixing with the faint hum of hovering transport pods and the soft rustle of alien flora that lined the settlement. Some of the children had bright blue skin, some soft green, and a few even shimmered faintly in shades of violet. Their wings glimmered in the sunlight as they darted and twirled, playing games that humans could barely imagine. But at the edge of one field, a small figure sat alone, watching with wide, curious eyes. Her name was Lyra. She was smaller than most children her age, and her skin was a pale shade of blue that almost seemed to fade into the air around her. Her wings drooped slightly, and she seldom spoke to others. Today, like most days, she sat on the smooth, glowing rocks beside the fountain, observing. She watched the other children run, spin, and leap, their laughter reaching her ears, but it did not reach her heart. She wanted to join, but something always held her back. Lyra had been teased before. The other children didn't mean to be cruel, but their games moved quickly, and she often fell behind. Sometimes they called her Shadow Girl when she trailed behind the others. At first it made her sad, but over time she had learned to accept her distance. She would sit quietly and watch, keeping her feelings hidden. Her teachers had tried to include her, offering games that suited her slow, careful pace. But even they seemed unsure how to reach her. On this particular day, a human arrived at the colony. Ethan had been sent as part of an interstellar cultural exchange program. He was tall, with dark hair and kind eyes that seemed to notice everything. Humans were rare on Xerion 5, and most aliens didn't know what to expect from him. But Ethan had a gentle way about him. He didn't speak loudly. He didn't rush anyone. And he seemed genuinely interested in understanding the alien world he had come to as he watched the children. His gaze fell on Lyra. She was so quiet, so still. And yet there was something in her eyes that drew him. He saw the longing there, the wish to be part of the group without the courage to step forward. Something inside him urged him to reach out. Ethan approached slowly, careful not to startle her. He knelt beside Lyra, offering a small, friendly smile. "Hi," he said softly. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes wide and unsure. She had never spoken much, and humans were strange to her. But his voice was calm, gentle, almost musical in a way she hadn't heard before. "Hi," she whispered in reply. "Why aren't you playing?" Ethan asked, tilting his head slightly. Lyra shrugged, her shoulders small and tense. Words didn't come easily to her in the common language. Even if they did, she wasn't sure she wanted to explain. Instead of pressing her, Ethan reached into his bag and pulled out a small device. He tapped it gently, and colorful holographic shapes appeared in the air spheres. Stars, animals, and strange moving patterns. They floated, twirled, and glimmered in the sunlight. Lyra's eyes widened, and for a moment, sadness in them seemed to fade. Ethan laughed softly, waving his hands through the shapes, making them spin and change colors. "Do you want to try?" he asked. Lyra hesitated. She had never played games like this before, but something in the way he moved, so patient and kind, made her nod slightly. She reached out her hand and her fingers brushed a glowing star. It shimmered and changed color, reflecting in her eyes. A small smile appeared on her face, tentative but real. For the next hour, they played together. Ethan created shapes, and Lyra learned to move them, change them, and even combine them into simple patterns. She laughed softly when a star spun too fast, or a sphere bounced unexpectedly. The sound was rare, almost magical to the other children who occasionally glanced over, curious about what was happening at the edge of the playground. By the next day, Lyra had returned, eager to meet Ethan again. She approached him more confidently this time. They spent the morning inventing games that combined light, movement, and imagination. Ethan didn't rush her, and he never laughed at her mistakes. Slowly, Lyra's wings began to lift, her movements became quicker, and her laughter grew louder. The other children noticed. They paused in their games to watch Lyra, first with curiosity, then with amazement. She wasn't just sitting at the edge anymore. She was moving, spinning, and interacting. She even started mimicking some of the movements of the other children, though in her own careful, graceful way. One day, a group of children approached her. "Can we join?" one asked nervously. Lyra hesitated. She had spent so long alone that the idea of sharing her game felt strange. But Ethan encouraged her gently. "It's okay. You can show them," Lyra nodded, taking a deep breath. She invited the children into her game, showing them how to move the holographic shapes, how to combine them into patterns. The other children laughed and learned quickly. Soon, Lyra was no longer the shadow at the edge, she was in the center, leading a group, her laughter ringing clearly across the playground. As the days passed, Lyra's confidence grew. She discovered that she could talk more easily, and she even started teaching the other children small tricks she had learned with Ethan. The colony watched as the once isolated girl began to shine in ways no one had expected. Yet, even as she grew more comfortable, there were hints of something deeper. Strange signals had been detected from the edge of the forest near the colony. Scientists were curious, but the children paid little attention. Lyra, however, felt a pull toward the forest, a mix of fear and curiosity that she could not explain. Ethan noticed it too. He didn't push her, but he promised to explore it with her when the time came. One evening, as the twin suns of Zarin 5 began to set, casting long shadows across the playground, Lyra and Ethan sat together by the fountain. The other children had left, tired from the day's games. Lyra leaned against him slightly, her wings fluttering in contentment. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth he had not expected. "You don't have to thank me. You did all the work," he said softly. Lyra shook her head. "I didn't think I could laugh like this. Not with anyone," Ethan said gently. "You just needed a reason to try." For the first time in her life, Lyra felt truly seen. She wasn't just an observer of life anymore. She was part of it. The playground, once a place of loneliness, had become a world of possibilities. She had learned to trust, to play, and to smile. But the signal from the forest reminded them both that adventure was not over. Something waited beyond the edge of their safe world. And Lyra's journey was only beginning, as the stars began to appear in the twin skies. Lyra's glowing eyes reflected the shimmering constellations above. She was ready for the next step, ready to face the unknown, and for the first time, she felt she would not be alone. The humans and aliens had discovered something extraordinary together, that a small act of kindness, patience, and understanding could change a life forever. And in the quiet moments, when she thought no one was watching, Lyra smiled, knowing that her world had grown much larger than she ever imagined. By the time the night fully settled over Zarin 5, Lyra was no longer just the shadow girl. She was a girl who had found her voice, her laughter, and her courage. The playground was silent now, but the echoes of her joy lingered, a promise of brighter days to come, and a reminder that even in a vast alien world, friendship could make anything possible. The forest waited in silence, its strange signal pulsing softly in the distance. It was a challenge, a mystery, and a chance for Lyra to learn even more about herself and the universe. But for now, she sat with Ethan, content, smiling, and knowing that someone believed in her, and that was enough to change everything. The next morning, the twin suns rose slowly over Zarin 5, casting soft golden light across the playground. Lyra woke earlier than usual, her mind full of curiosity about the forest at the edge of the colony. The strange signals they had detected had been pulsing intermittently for days, and now they seemed stronger than ever. She felt a pull she could not explain, a whisper that called to her from the shadows of the towering alien trees. Ethan was waiting by the fountain. He smiled gently when he saw her. "Ready for an adventure?" he asked. Lyra nodded, her wings quivering with anticipation. They packed a small satchel with essentials: water, simple food, a small scanner to detect energy signals, and a soft blanket to rest on. Ethan carried a map of the area, though the forest was largely unexplored and uncharted. Lyra's eyes sparkled as they stepped past the familiar playground and into the unknown. The forest was alive with strange sounds and colors. Bioluminescent plants glowed softly. The air was thick with the scent of alien flowers that pulsed in rhythm with the signals Lyra had sensed. Small creatures darted between the branches, and faint melodic calls echoed through the trees. Lyra's heart raced with both fear and excitement. She had never been this far from the settlement. As they moved deeper, the signals grew stronger. Lyra's wings began to lift instinctively, helping her glide over uneven terrain. Ethan followed closely, marveling at the way she moved, her confidence growing with every step. After a while, they came to a clearing where the signal pulsed most strongly. At the center lay a small creature, unlike any Lyra had seen. Its body was crystalline, reflecting the sunlight in tiny rainbows. Several of its limbs were trapped under a fallen branch. Without hesitation, Lyra ran forward. She carefully lifted the branch with her small but strong hands. The creature trembled at first, then nuzzled her gently. Ethan watched with admiration. "You have a gift," he said softly. "You connect with creatures in a way most people can't." Lyra blushed, but said nothing. She simply continued to stroke the creature's crystalline limbs, humming softly. The creature responded, moving its glowing eyes toward her, letting her know it trusted her. Ethan carefully scanned the area, noting the energy patterns in the forest. "These signals. They're alive," he said. "It's like the forest is communicating through this creature." Over the next few hours, Lyra and Ethan explored further. They found more creatures, some hiding, some curious, all seemingly drawn to Lyra's presence. She learned to read subtle signs in the environment, the movement of leaves, changes in light, the pulse of the ground beneath their feet. Each discovery made her braver, and each small act of kindness toward the creature strengthened the bond between her and Ethan. By late afternoon, they reached a small pond, its surface perfectly still and reflecting the twin suns. Lyra knelt beside it, watching as tiny luminescent fish swam just below the surface. She felt a sense of peace, a connection to the world around her that she had never felt in the playground. Ethan joined her, pointing to patterns in the water that mirrored the holographic shapes they had played with before. "Look," he said, "even here, patterns exist. Everything is connected." Lyra smiled, her eyes glowing softly. "It's beautiful," she whispered. As they rested, the forest began to change. Shadows stretched longer, and the pulsing signals grew uneven, almost urgent. Ethan stood, scanning with his device. "Something is coming," he said. Lyra's heart quickened. She had faced new creatures and strange signals before, but this felt different, as if the forest itself was alive and aware of their presence. A sudden movement caught her eye. From behind a cluster of glowing trees, a group of small winged creatures emerged. They had sharp, angular wings and eyes that shimmered like liquid silver. They hovered, watching Lyra and Ethan cautiously. Lyra took a deep breath and stepped forward, holding her hands out to show she meant no harm. The creatures hesitated, then slowly approached. One brushed its wings against her arm. "A gesture of trust," Ethan whispered. "You've earned their trust." "Lyra, they can sense your kindness." Lyra felt proud. Yet she also realized that the forest had test challenges that would not be easy. She had to prove her courage, her empathy, and her understanding of the world around her. As night fell, the forest glowed softly under the twin moons. Lyra and Ethan set up a small camp near the pond. They shared a simple meal, and Ethan taught her ways to observe the creatures without frightening them. Lyra listened carefully, asking questions and making notes in a small notebook she carried. She felt alive in a way she never had in the playground, a mix of excitement and purpose. During the night, the signal pulsed again, this time forming a pattern that seemed almost like a message. Lyra leaned closer, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the forest. She traced the pattern with her finger, feeling a connection she could not explain. "It's trying to tell us something," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "Yes, and I think it wants you to lead, Lyra. You have the gift to understand it." The following morning they set out once more, guided by the pulsing signal. It led them to a massive tree, its trunk wider than any building in the colony, its roots twisting like giant veins across the ground. At its base was a small opening, just large enough for Lyra to crawl through. Ethan encouraged her gently. "You go first. I'll follow." Inside, the tree was hollow, and the walls glowed with the same bioluminescence that pulsed in the forest. Strange symbols were etched into the surface, moving slightly, almost alive. Lyra ran her fingers over them, feeling warmth and energy. She realized that the tree was a living memory of the forest, storing experiences, knowledge, and emotions. The crystalline creatures from before gathered around her, chirping softly. Lyra understood instinctively that they were showing her a path, guiding her deeper into the tree. She moved carefully, feeling a sense of awe and reverence. Ethan followed closely, documenting everything with his device. Marveling at the intelligence and complexity of the living forest at the center of the hollow, they found a small chamber where a single crystal pulsed brightly. Lyra approached it, feeling a strange connection. The crystal seemed to respond to her presence, its light growing brighter with each step she took. When she touched it, images and sensations filled her mind scenes of the forest from long ago. Creatures playing, thriving, and communicating. She understood now that this was a place of learning and harmony. A living heart of the forest, Ethan watched in amazement as Lyra's eyes shone brightly. "You understand it," he said softly. "You're meant to be here," Lyra nodded, tears forming in her eyes. She felt a sense of belonging, unlike anything she had known before. She had not only found courage and friendship in the playground, but had now discovered a connection to the living world around her. As they left the tree, the crystalline creatures followed, hovering in the air and guiding them safely back to the pond. Lyra felt a deep sense of pride. She had faced the unknown, learned from it, and helped it thrive. Ethan smiled beside her, proud of how far she had come. When they returned to the settlement, the children and adults noticed a change. Lyra moved with confidence, her laughter bright and open. She shared stories of the forest and the creatures she had met, teaching others about kindness, empathy, and curiosity. The other children were inspired, some even eager to explore and learn themselves. Lyra had become more than just a girl who once watched from the edge. She was a leader, a teacher, and a bridge between species. Her friendship with Ethan had given her confidence, but her own courage and empathy had allowed her to grow beyond what anyone had imagined. One evening, as the twin suns set and the sky turned soft shades of orange and purple, Lyra and Ethan returned to the playground. Children were still playing, but now they paused to watch her, curious and respectful. Lyra smiled, glowing softly in the dim light. She realized that the playground, once a place of isolation, had become a symbol of her growth and potential. The forest, still pulsing faintly at the edge of the colony, called to her occasionally, reminding her that adventure never truly ends. But Lyra no longer feared the unknown. She had learned that courage, kindness, and understanding could open doors she never knew existed. And with Ethan by her side, she felt ready for anything the universe might send her way. As night fell and the twin moons reflected in the playground's crystal fountains, Lyra sat quietly, watching the children play. She had found joy, friendship, and purpose. Her laughter rang across the fields, bright and clear, a testament to the power of empathy and courage. For the first time, she understood that even in a vast alien world, a single person's kindness could create ripples that change everything. Ethan watched her from nearby, his smile quiet but proud. "You've grown so much, Lyra," he said softly. "You've taught us all something important." Lyra looked at him, her eyes shining. "I just wanted to be part of something," she whispered, "and now I am." Together, they stood, looking out over the playground, the colony, and the glowing forest beyond. Lyra felt a sense of completeness she had never known, yet she also felt the thrill of future adventures. The universe was vast, full of mysteries, and she was ready to face them. She had a reason to smile, a reason to play, and a reason to believe in herself. And for the first time, Lyra knew that she would never be alone again.